Welcome to this week's Catch Up at Armidale Auto Parts. I'm going to be covering some of the things that are required to fit a vintage air system into a classic car. We'll go through some of the details, some of the things to think about, and show you some pictures of ones that we fitted recently, and a few other things that we've been doing around the shop.
This last week we fitted a vintage air system to Gareth's 56 Chevy sedan. Fantastic looking car, but when it came to fitting the vintage air there are a few things to consider and a few things you do need to work out, so let's run through some of the things that are required when fitting air conditioning to a vintage car. Gareth decided that the cheaper option was to run the vintage air under dash unit as shown here, the Heritage series. These come as shown with 4 vents, quite compact and quite simple to fit, just bolt up under the dash, and they do come with a few different fascias. They do cool the car very well, and even though only small, these will definitely keep even a large 4-door sedan like this nice and cool. When it comes to going and fitting the vintage air system, you also have to consider things under the bonnet. In this case, we had to remove Gareth's original thermatic fan that was mounted in front of the radiator, and it had an engine fan, so we changed it over to a large thermatic fan on the rear inside the engine bay and put the condenser on the front. That also meant we did have to relocate his transmission cooler as it was mounted in front of the radiator and may have blocked airflow. So we opted to go for a tube fin style radiator cooler, transmission cooler. These work quite well. You can mount them down low as shown here, or they can go under the chassis alongside under the car. When it comes to fitting the aircon to the car, obviously there is a compressor required and bracketry. There can be quite a few different things to consider. With Chevys, for example, you have short water pump, long water pump. There's a whole bunch of different brackets depending on whether or not the holes in the heads are there or not. In this instance it didn't have holes in the head, so we had to go for a top mount style system, bracket system. You can also go for outside the rocker cover on cars with a lower bonnet. Depending on the type of engine you have, Ford Windsors, Cleveland, your Mopar stuff isn't too bad for brackets, but when you start getting to Cadillac and Buick, it can be tricky to find brackets, so you may have to look at an electric compressor. While they are a little bit more expensive, it does mean you don't have to put anything on the engine, and there's no pulley changes required. The other way you can go is a fully integrated system, like we fitted to this 57 Chev a few years ago for Mark. As we go into the car, you'll see that the under dash evaporator is all hidden up in the dash. You can see on the left hand side down under the dash, and to the right hand side under the dash is where the outside vents are. And in the middle you'll see the center vent, and the control is a modified version of the original heater control panel.